Welcome to the MindBodyCouple podcast.
I'm Tanner Murtaugh.
And I'm Ann Hampson.
This podcast is dedicated to helping you unlearn chronic pain and symptoms.
If you need support with your healing, you can book in for a consultation with one of our therapists at painpsychotherapy.ca.
Or purchase our online course at MindBodyCommunity.com to access in-depth education, somatic practices, recovery tools, and an interactive community focused on healing. Links in the description of each episode. Hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back.
Welcome back to the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Today, part 2 of our Blended States series.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've been following along, we did, play. Talked about play, how play is essential to heal chronic pain, chronic symptoms. And today we're going to talk about purposeful action.
I like that purposeful action. There's something, I don't know, there's something kind of powerful even about that statement.
There is, and we're going to get into why engaging in this purposeful action is a real essential when healing neuroplastic pain and symptoms. So first, a definition. Purposeful action is when we engage in action or behaviors with a sense of purpose, passion, creativity, and or meaning.
And so how would we differentiate that, Tanner? Because we do actions all the time. So how would we know it's purposeful?
Yeah, and so I think it's the feeling that we have inside as we're engaging in it. I think a lot of times for people with neuroplastic pain or symptoms, myself included, we engage in actions, but it's really driven by fear and dysregulation. So for a great example of this is like perfectionism. Perfectionism, you're engaging in basically trying to gain social acceptance through actions that are based in fear. They're based in this like fight or flight dysregulation. And so this is why purposeful action, and we're going to talk about why it's so difficult for people, because for most of us, myself included, we've engaged in actions and we've lived our life, but it is from this place of fear and dysregulation. That's like the driving force a lot of the time. And so purposeful action is different because you're engaging in the action, but you're doing it to have a sense of purpose, to be passionate about something, and to have greater meaning that really matters to you.
So when we think of maybe skills like somatic tracking or safety signals, when we engage in those things, there's a different purpose behind those other than fear or reaction.
Yes. And as we start to live our life, this is what we want to do. It's vital to move towards our goals, engage in life with healthy stress, with meaningful stress, and cultivate motivation. This is what purposeful action can give us. And one thing I really want to highlight here is when we talk about safety, people get this confused. A lot of people understand the cure for neuroplastic pain and symptoms is safety, which is correct.
Yes.
But most of us think safety means calmness. I need to be calm almost all the time in order to cultivate safety.
Right.
And so and I've done this when I was first healing. And what'll happen is you end up more dysregulated because your nervous system, it's not meant to feel calm all the time. We're not designed. And so, yeah, I want someone to have more access to calmness, but safety is having this deep embodied connection. We're able to attend to all the states of our nervous system, all our emotions, our pain and symptoms, but we're doing it with this sense of safety, compassion, lightness, and ease involved. And purposeful action is a very useful blended state that actually cultivates a feeling of safety. It cultivates a feeling of safety in our life, but it's not calmness a lot of the time.
So it's not necessarily about, that's right, leaning into calmness or that type of sensation is regardless of calmness or maybe excitement or whatever we're feeling, of creating purposeful action within that.
Yeah, because purposeful action, people are motivated, people are driven, people are doing things, they're mobilized. So you're not necessarily calm. Like you might have a foot in calmness, but you're driving forward with purpose and meaning. And so we really believe that learning to engage in purposeful action is essential for healing neuroplastic pain and symptoms. You talk about this when we have chronic symptoms. For many of us, our world shrinks. All of the actions we take become dedicated to figuring out, fighting against, fixing our symptoms in some way, which I know we see a lot with the clients that we
Right.
work with,
Yeah.
where this is what's driving them forward is all their actions become that. And as a result, all all the actions based on values and meaning and purpose shrink and shrink and shrink until
Mm.
we almost have this shell of a life.
Ah, okay. So would this idea of purposeful action then be kind of stepping outside of that and then, yeah, creating meaning or purpose within our life or engaging in life again outside of the fixation on pain and symptoms?
Yeah. And you think about this, like when I was healing, like I said, I really had this view at points which was not helpful of I just need to be calm all the time. I
Right.
almost call it Zen mode. Like I'm just going to be like Zen and relaxed and calm all the time. But I almost kept my world small as a result. And so we can't heal by keeping our world small. Like we heal by widening our world through purposeful action, through beginning to engage in life again.
Can you tell us maybe, just so people can really get an understanding of what we're saying with purposeful action, of how you started purposeful action when you were widening your world? Like, what did that look like for you?
Part of it was starting, and I'm going to give a funny story at the end of this episode. So I'll get into that of one of the main things that I did. But one thing that I started to engage in is, I did start to work again.
Hmm.
But the job I was into, it was a good transition job. It wasn't something I was ever going to be super passionate about, but it was laid back enough that I had a lot of time to do the healing work. But I started to think about my future. I started to make plans. This was a rare thing because I had no plans by the end of my chronic pain. Like my plan was just to get out of pain. That was it. But I started to do things like look at what graduate program I wanted to go and do because I already had my undergrad in social work. And I wasn't certain if I wanted to be a therapist. I had just gone through hell with chronic pain. So I wasn't certain. So do you remember the law school thing?
Oh,
Yeah,
yes. Yes.
Tanner the lawyer.
Oh, wow. I feel like Tanner the lawyer would be very stressed.
Tanner the lawyer would have been stressed. I made a good choice there.
Oh, yes.
But it
I'm glad you're
was
not Tanner the
I'm
lawyer.
I'm glad I'm not Tanner
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
lawyer. Um, I could have figured it out. We would have been fine.
Right,
But
right.
one thing that was useful is I was just starting to like research programs. Like even
Ah.
though playing that out may not have gone so well for me given my nervous system state, but it was helpful for me to make plans of like, oh, like what are the requirements for law school? What are the requirements to do a clinical social work graduate? Like I started to look into this. I even started to study for the LSAT, which you need to get into
Yes.
law school.
Yes.
But it gave me some purposeful action.
Ah, okay. So action then about engaging life outside of pain and symptoms.
Exactly.
And then with that intention behind it, this intention that I'm going to kind of lean into this and put my efforts here
Yeah.
instead.
Yeah, because you're widening your world. Like
Yeah.
one activity that I know we both give our clients often, but it's a really useful one and it's so simple is each day can you do one thing to make your life bigger and your symptoms smaller?
Right.
Like we don't need to go 0 to 100 here. Like I didn't need to go into studying for the LSAT for 13 hours a day, which luckily I did not do. But
Hmm.
but like just these small actions where you're taking purposeful action to widen your world, to live by your values, to be creative, to be passionate. That's what we're going for.
Well, and that can feel really scary, especially if we're used to being hyper focused on pain and symptoms. That's where all of our purpose has been, or all of our actions
Yeah.
have been. It can feel really difficult to try to shift elsewhere. And so we really want to validate that this isn't always easy and can feel really scary at first.
It can feel scary because you're shifting your focus, and
Hmm.
we often believe like I need to be this focused on my
Yeah.
symptoms or I'll never heal.
One thing I want to add here, if you're struggling with like rumination and hyper focus and always thinking about pain and symptoms, which I hear from people a lot, this is a way to start kind of shifting out of that pathway or pattern as well,
Yeah.
to just actively practice putting focus elsewhere.
Hmm. So what I want to do now is just explain, why purposeful action is a blended state. We've already touched on this. This is a little bit of the science really quick. But purposeful action is this useful blend. It blends together sympathetic and sympathetic, it's fight or flight, of course, like fear, anger kind of territory, but it's also mobilization. Like we need it. Like right now, we're having a conversation. No one can see us, but we're like looking at each other. We're looking at our notes for the show. Like there is this mobilized energy that's taking place. We're not in fight or flight, or at least I'm not. I'm not sure if you are. Maybe you are, but we're mobilized to some degree. But purposeful action, it blends together sympathetic, mobilized, not fight or flight, but mobilized, with ventral vagal, safe, connected, socially engaged, calm, at ease. So it blends these two things together really nicely. And that's what we're going for because we need to teach our brain not just to be in ventral and safe, calm, connected,
Mm.
but also how to be mobilized while feeling safe.
Yes, because I think sometimes we can get caught in to, try to feel calm, like you're saying, or safe in this like pure meditative zone in a seated position all the time. And that's what we think is cultivating safety. But then we're not engaging in life. And so we need
Mhm.
to be engaging life as well.
Yeah. And, purposeful action, as we've touched on lightly so far, it's not just us telling you, hey, go be purposeful in your actions. Just go do it because, like, you do need exposure to doing it, but it can be difficult to do. Like, it can be a difficult blended state to access. Often, our neuroplastic pain and symptoms can actually get in the way of purposeful action.
Yes.
Or people have a strong belief of, I can't engage in life or the world until my symptoms start to reduce. But I do want to state that often it's the opposite. People start to widen their world, they start to take purposeful action, and then their symptoms start to reduce.
And that's a bit like I want to say leap of faith or a bit of trust or a bit of like, okay, I'll see. So
Yeah,
we kind of have to do that first to kind of let
yeah.
that happen.
And I want to be clear here, gradual. Grade this
Mm-hmm.
experience. Don't go study for the LSAT for 13 hours when you haven't sat in front of a computer for a year. Like
Right.
that's going to be really overwhelming.
Right. And that's again back to that phrase of don't just, we're not telling you to just go do it.
Yeah.
Go do it in this kind of gradual way that cultivates safety.
Yeah. But our pain and symptoms can get in the way. They
Hmm.
make it really hard. The other thing is for a lot of people, in terms of the way they cope when they have neuroplastic pain or symptoms, part of the reason we've developed neuroplastic pain or symptoms is we've lived life with a lot of intensity, with perfectionism, with high achieving standards. And this can turn purposeful action into pressure and a fight or flight state so quick. This is like one of the main things that I see is, people try to engage in purposeful action. They go into high fight or flight really quick, and then they eventually just shut down into kind of like a shutdown, frozen state. This pattern, this is why you have to practice this in a graded way. For myself, this happens not so much anymore, but even when we first started our main company, I would get great ideas. I'm full of great ideas, and I get great ideas, and I tell you about the great ideas. I'd be like, yeah, we got to do this project. This is going to be epic. This is going to help so many people. And within 20 minutes, I would all of a sudden been in fight or flight.
Yeah.
So there was purposeful action. I was excited. I was motivated. And then I lost the ventral safe and connected part, and I just went into fight or flight. And this is why we have to practice purposeful action intentionally in small ways at first, because a lot of people, because they've lived life with such intensity and from a state of fear, it can be really hard to start to motivate ourselves and sit in this state. The other reason that I often see purposeful actions hard is people really have a limited tolerance for kind of mobilized energy.
Mm.
Like they really struggle with that state of like
Why
fear.
do you think so?
Well, I think people have had so many negative experiences with anxiety or with anger or rage where they felt so dysregulated and out of control that even when their system starts to just mobilize, but not go into fight or flight, but just mobilize, get them excited, get them motivated, that energy feels really overwhelming. They're
Mm.
like people get scared, they're gonna move to high anxiety real quick.
Well, and this goes back to the idea that we want to kind of create safety and be okay experiencing all different kinds of states
Yeah.
and exposure to them.
Yes. And so I'll give you a little story of this is the first big purposeful action project I did when I was healing. I'll
Yes.
give you a little insight of what I'm doing now. You remember this though, Anne.
Oh, I do.
So at the time, our son was like, I had been healed. I had been out of pain primarily for, I don't know, year and a half, 2 years. It had been a while. And our son was maybe 1 or under 1 at this time. And like I said, I was working at this job that was pretty laid back. He gave me a lot of space to do healing work, but I was having a hard time like getting excited about life again. I was scared to do that. And so me and a colleague at my job, we decided we were going to make this children's book.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how we got here. It just came up, and I like to do some art. Like it can be artistic, not an amazing drawer, but artistic. And she wanted to write the story, but it was a good practice ground because it gave me practice. Like I remember feeling like for the first time in years, like really excited, like just really excited about something that didn't have anything to do with my pain. And there were points where it turned to fight or flight, I will admit, but it gave me practice, like being purposeful in the way I was acting, being motivated, being excited. And then when it went too far into fight or flight, I would shift back.
Well, and it's funny because I remember this pretty clearly, Tanner. And I remember seeing you excited about something. And that's right. Like I hadn't seen you excited about something in a while. So I was excited for you. I also remember the fight or flight. Like
Hmm.
I remember you guys were struggling at it or something was going wrong. And then it was like your whole world was crumbling. Like
Yeah,
it was almost so much was attached to it for
yeah,
you that then that intensity would just topple it over.
yeah. So it was a really useful exercise, to be honest. I've had many times that's happened since in
Yes.
the decade that I've been
We've come to
healed.
learn it's a bit of a
But I've become
pattern.
better at it
Yeah.
over time. Like I've become better at catching because you almost have to like when you're doing purposeful action, like say you're working on something and we're gonna give everyone a little task at the end of this, you have to like be very like somatically focused of like when am I excited? When am I motivated? When am I passionate? And when does this all of a sudden turn to fight or flight?
Well, and this is great because this really helps expose to a lot of things. So it helps expose to kind of ventral vagal energy or that sympathetic energy. It helps expose also to maybe like taking intensity down a notch or lowering perfectionism. So this can challenge a lot of areas that
Yeah.
we want to work on.
And it was great. And we never published the children's book. We
No.
never completed it, but but it was a good practice ground
Yeah.
for me to get used to things. My children's book, yeah, I don't know if you remember this. It was like about a boy who felt sad, like why so blue?
No.
Why so blue? And he actually turns blue,
Right.
and then he does all these things to try and like
It's a good
not
idea.
become blue. I know
I
it's
like
good.
it. People might be like, yeah,
Yeah,
hopefully. Or they're
yeah.
like, oh
I love how my
no.
therapy's like sinking into these children's books, but
Like you're the blue boy?
no, it was our son.
I thought when you were like
No, I just mean
feeling
like,
sad.
of course I'm doing a book on emotions. I'm a therapist, right?
Yes, right.
But
Not yourself.
yeah, I'm a bit nostalgic right now. I like that. I like it. Yeah.
And
And now I'm working on something new too. I'm starting to play guitar again.
it's funny because I know your pattern and I've been like watching a bit of like, is this going to tip over into
Yeah.
intensity?
But I've been trying. There's been a few times because I used to play guitar in rock bands many years ago. But in the last couple of years of like running our company, I just haven't had the time. And I'm starting to make the time. And I'm
Yeah.
starting to practice. But I notice myself, I can get intense. I can get like all or nothing in my thinking of like, I have to do this or else, which I'm trying to catch.
Actually, interestingly, so Tanner likes to play his guitar in the open area where we all have to hear it.
So you can hear my beautiful music.
I guess so. But the other day, I told them, I was like, please go elsewhere. And sometimes if you're in really fight or flight around it or like super intensity, you would really struggle with that because you're like, no, I need to do it my way, how I want to do it. Like there would be so much attached to it. But that didn't happen. You were able to kind of slow it down. And I was proud.
Yeah.
Tanner, good work.
And I remember when you did it, and I
elsewhere.
did feel slightly irritated, I will
remember.
admit, but it wasn't to the point that it usually would get to many years ago.
Yes.
So I'm getting better. I'm getting more flexible. I'm being able to be like, hey, this is a hobby.
Yes.
I'm not going to be a rock star.
Well, something that's good about this, so when we think of purposeful action and we're starting to engage in things as well, playing around with that teaches us how to keep that around. Because usually when it tips over into too high of intensity, it becomes fight or flight. Then kind of like the children's book, we just think we can't do it anymore. And so for you, of like kind of feeling out these different states, but lowering the intensity and taking it gradually, it's allowing you to keep this as a part of your life instead of it just falling off the map.
Yeah, being intense and then burning out.
Yeah.
Like it's finding, and it still, and I've been practicing for years, it's like I have to be very conscious of this. So now the task for everyone.
Okay.
Hopefully people listen this far, you know? We put a lot of effort into thinking of giving people tasks.
Yeah. And it's a good one.
I feel like we're the practical podcast.
I hope so.
I feel like we are.
I have had that feedback, actually,
You
that
know?
people like the tasks or like feeling like, okay, this is what we do.
And this isn't to speak ill of other podcasts. I don't mean it like that. Like, I really don't. Like, there's lots of other podcasts that are great that are, you know, but this is kind of our position in the mind-body world. We're the practical podcast.
Yeah. We hope. We hope you all feel that way.
We hope. So this week, your task is you're going to experiment with the blended state of purposeful action. So here's what it is. You're going to pick a small, meaningful action, like a home project, a creative hobby, cooking, baking, a physical activity, but pick something that's small and non-threatening. Low stakes here. Don't pick the biggest project you have to do to work on at work or with school. That's going to be a hard practice ground. Like, pick something that's non-threatening and small. Don't set a deadline for completion. And then focus on the emotions of excitement and creativity during the project. And then allow these emotions to fuel your motivation. But when the fuel gets low or you start to get intense, give yourself permission to quit. Return to it later.
Okay. And are we clear that this task isn't, we want it nothing to do with pain and symptoms?
Nothing to do with the healing work.
Okay. So it's not like, I'm doing this and hope that impacts my pain. We might still have that thoughts with other purposeful actions. That's normal.
Yeah.
But we want, again,
and long term, I do think it'll affect people's pain, but don't do this to try and make your pain go away.
Yeah.
Like, do this for the purpose of, like, making your life more whole, feeling more alive.
And again, that might feel hard if it means, oh, for this while, I'm not going to be thinking about my pain or symptoms. And that's really new for me. So if you try to engage in this, and as far as you get of like taking a little bit time out of thinking pain and symptoms, that's a win.
Yeah. So I hope this podcast on purposeful action was helpful for everyone. And we have date night tonight.
Yes.
Date night. Anne's a bit sick, but
I am a bit sick.
But date night.
Yeah, the date night. That's right. We still are excited for it.
Don't worry. We'll just like sleep in the car.
That's right. We have a babysitter, and we book her for a period of time. So we don't we feel, I don't know, guilty coming back early or something. So
Yeah.
sometimes we hang in our car.
But it's nice.
It is nice because there's no kids there.
Car hangs.
Car hangs.
They're a bit nostalgic. I remember
It
us doing
brings
that
us
a
back to
lot
when
when
we
we were
were
like
young.
20, you know?
Yeah, and we would just hang in our car when we were young. Now we really don't have time for that.
We don't have time for that.
No.
Except on date night.
Day night, yeah.
All right. We will talk to you all next week.
Talk to you next week. Thanks for listening. For more free content, check out the links for our YouTube channel, Instagram, and Facebook accounts in the episode description.
We wish you all healing.